I just made a video talking about how good Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was recently, and it got me thinking. Are there games out there that are so good, so meticulously crafted that they ended up defining an entire genre or setting entirely new standards for how games are made, but still somehow not win Game of the Year? And the answer is yes. Obviously, yes. Because Game of the Year isn't actually about which game is the best. It never has been. If you've been paying attention to these awards over the years, you probably noticed the pattern already. And look, I'm not here to shit on any game that's won Game of the Year awards. Most of them are genuinely great games. But here's the thing. Game of the Year isn't a measure of quality in the way you think it is. It's a measure of cultural impact, timing, and honestly, marketing budget. It's about which game dominated the conversation that year, which game had the biggest release window, which game made everyone feel like they have to have an opinion about it. And that's a completely different thing from being the actual best game. Take something like Disco Elysium. That game came out in 2018 and it genuinely changed how people think about RPGs. The writing in that game is on a level that most games don't even attempt to reach. It's doing most things with dialogues and character development and political philosophy that are so far beyond what most games try to do. But did it win the big Game of the Year awards? It won some, sure, especially from outlets that actually play a lot of RPGs. But the mainstream ones? Sekiro took most of those, and Sekiro was a fantastic game, don't get me wrong. But it was made by From Software Games back when they were in peak hype. It had the zeitgeist around it. But no matter how good this game was, it was too niche, too inaccessible, and too weird for mainstream audiences. And how about the previous year before, Red Dead Redemption 2? Now, that game actually did win a lot of awards in 2018, but here's the interesting part. It lost the biggest one.
Here it goes. All right, and the game award for Game of the Year goes to God of War.
The Game Awards Game of the Year went to God of War, and I remember the discourse around that was insane. People were genuinely angry about it, but let's be absolutely honest. Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably the most meticulously crafted open world game ever made. The level of detail in that game is borderline obsessive. Rockstar spent 8 years and hundreds of millions of dollars making sure every single animation, every environmental detail, every NPC interaction felt real. The way your horse's balls shrink in cold weather became a meme, but it's actually representative of how absurd the level of craft in that game. And yeah, it won a bunch of awards, but the fact that even with all that, it still lost the Game of the Year awards tells you how subjective this thing is. Some people thought that the slow pace and the simulation elements were exactly what made it a masterpiece. Other people thought that it made the game a slog. Both groups are right, depending on what they value in games. But we're supposed to pick one winner anyway. Or what about games that are genuinely innovative but come out at the wrong time? Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a perfect example of this. That game is doing things with historical accuracy and immersive simulation that most RPGs don't even try to attempt. The level of detail in the city and the environment around it, the way it handles period-accurate storytelling, the commitment to making you feel like an actual person in medieval Bohemia. It's the kind of crap that should be recognized. But it came out way too early in February. It doesn't matter how good it is, because if it's time to vote in late December, they're going to forget everything that made it special because of recency bias. Which basically means you're fucked, because everyone's going to forget about it by the time the award season rolls around 10 months later. But here's the thing, it's not just Game of the Year that's broken. All the subcategories are just messy, or even maybe worse, because they try to pretend to be more specific. Best RPG? That category is a joke. You've got turn-based JRPGs competing against action-based RPGs, competing against CRPGs, competing against whatever the fuck RPGs there are. And we all know that every RPG is different. And the term RPG itself is so broad because it only means a role-playing game. Which, if you think about it, almost every game fits in that category. Anyways, I'll probably make a video talking about those soon, so if you want to see that, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe to the channel. Got it? Alright, bet. Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield both got nominated for the Best RPG at various awards. One is a well-crafted CRPG with branching choices that actually matter. The other is, well, it's Bethesda. So how are you supposed to compare those? They're not even trying to do the same thing. And the best narrative is even funnier. That award almost always goes to whatever story made people cry the most or had the biggest emotional moment, not necessarily the best written game. And don't even get me started on how walking simulators and visual novels barely get considered because they're not real games in some people's eyes, even though some of them have better writing than anything else that year. But best music and audio design, those at least seem more objective, right? Except they're not, because nobody voting has the time to actually sit and listen to entire soundtracks of every game released that year. The ones they're probably going to choose are the ones that are popular because almost everyone heard of the OST. But you should know that just because it's popular, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better, because after all, it's the Best Music and Audio Design Award, isn't it? And God forbid your game has subtle, atmospheric audio design instead of bombastic orchestral scores. That shit never wins, even when it's doing exactly what it's supposed to. The problem with Game of the Year flattens everything, because how do you compare a narrative RPG to a multiplayer shooter to a farming simulator? They're doing completely different things for completely different audiences. But if you shove them in one category, then pick a winner and act like it means something definitive, that's just fucking stupid. Because it's like whatever game is the most popular has the highest probability of winning. And the subcategories don't fix this. They just create smaller boxes with the same problems. Because the subcategories are just still a bit too broad. And the thing I hate is Game of the Year reinforces sameness, the lack of originality. Developers see what wins and make games that fit that mold. Publisher fund games that look like previous winners. The awards are supposed to recognize excellence, but they ended up encouraging everyone to chase the same formula. Want your RPG to win the best RPG? Make sure it got cinematic presentation and mainstream appeal. You want the best narrative award? Better have a story that's emotionally manipulative in exactly the right ways. You want the best music? Better get a big orchestral score because the ambient electronica or experimental sound design won't cut it. I'm not saying it's rigged. Voters genuinely believe they're picking the best game, but they've got limited time. They can't play everything, so they play the big ones. The ones everyone's talking about. The ones with massive budgets and marketing. So it's a self-fulfilling cycle. Think about Outer Wilds. One of the most unique and brilliantly designed games of the last decade. But it's small and quiet, so most people haven't specifically sought it after, haven't heard of it. There's so much games out there that are actually really great, but it's never mentioned because it's not mainstream. Man, I don't care if you actually like watching this idiot game award show, because let's be honest about what these awards actually measure versus what we pretend they measure. The games that define genres and push boundaries doesn't always win Game of the Year. Sometimes they do, but often they don't. Maybe because they're too weird, too niche, too early, too late, or just too different from what people expect a Game of the Year to look like. So the real question is, why do we keep pretending like the Game of the Year is the definitive measure of quality? We all know that it's flawed. The subcategories are flawed. The whole system is built on subjective opinions, pretending to be objective measures. Maybe we just haven't figured out a better system yet. But you don't need an award to tell you what a best game is. You've probably got a game that meant more to you than any Game of the Year winner ever did. Maybe some weird indie game or some weird old game you keep coming back to that nobody talks about anymore. You choose what game you love, and it doesn't need a trophy to prove it. And yeah, anyways, that's all for today's video, and if you like this video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe to the channel because it's free and it doesn't cost anything. Anyways, so yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.